After years of building Lego, I've seen dozens of different skeletons in sets, and I've always wondered who they really are. Some of them have bandanas, hats, helmets, and all sorts of accessories, so they have to be referencing a specific minifigure, right? Well, I wanted to know the answer, so I sat down at my PC, found every skeleton I could with an identifying accessory, and tried my hardest to track down who they were before they died. And I won't lie, the lore here is pretty disturbing. Some of these minifigs died a terrible death, so buckle up, because this video is going to completely change how you look at Lego. And the best place to start is the skeleton with a red bandana from the Pirates theme. Since 1997, when the first one was released, Lego's made 2 more versions, and across the board, they've only been in 4 sets. However, the first one was the Buccaneers set, and it kind of confused me at first. In the promo pic for it, the skeleton is standing upright and holding a golden ring, which obviously makes it look like he isn't dead. This was back in 1997, and at first, Lego didn't even want to release skeletons because they thought death and kids' toys shouldn't be mixed. So I kind of took this as Lego softening the blow of skeletons for kids. But they didn't do this for long, because just 1 year later, they released the Flying Ninja Fortress set in the ninja theme, and the ninjas were using this skeleton as a jump scare for a booby trap. You can see on page 8 of the instructions that the wall can flip around to the inside. This is the last time Lego would put this skeleton in a set until 2015, when they made the second version of it with an updated bandana, and the set it was in actually told a mini story. This pirate was following a treasure map on his own in a rowboat. It seems he was able to find the treasure, but when he gets there, he finds a skeleton with their hands on the booty and their weapon drawn. Now, we can make as many theories as we want about this, but what it looks like happened here is the pirate found the treasure, sensed danger, and died. We don't truly know how it went down, but what's even crazier is this was in a junior set. This is a pretty insane 180 from not even wanting to release skeletons. But this is only the second version of this skeleton. The third one is in a way newer set with some pretty serious lore. I'm talking about the remastered El Dorado Fortress set from 2023. The skeleton in this set died a pretty brutal death, and it all has to do with a letter. On page 8 of book 2, you place a letter inside a box and hide it inside what will later be a cave. And there's text that says, "A hidden letter? Whom could it be from? Who can solve this mystery?" There's absolutely no context on this anywhere else in the set, but when you get to page 56 in book 4, you place a skeleton in a pretty tight spot in a cave, and there's text here that says, "How this poor skeleton met his fate is unknown. Perhaps he was trying to escape or went in search of the hidden letter," again implying that this letter is pretty important. Now, I don't know a lot about vintage Lego lore, so I found someone on Eurobricks with the same question as me, and everyone was saying that this letter has no correlation to the original El Dorado Fortress set. Whatever it is though, it must be pretty special, because this skeleton was willing to go into an extremely tight cave to get it, and ended up paying for it with their life. These 4 skeletons all tell unique stories, but because of how many pirates wear a red bandana, it's impossible to narrow down who any of them are, let alone all 4. However, sometimes Lego literally tells us who it is with the name of the minifigure, and the best example of this is in the Hidden Side theme. There's a character in this theme named Douglas Elton, who's a stuntman and a paranormal investigator at the same time. Usually when people die in this theme, it's because they get possessed, but Douglas actually died. There are 3 different skeletons of him in his uniform, and they're all in separate sets, but technically speaking, he isn't exactly dead. He was at first, because he sacrificed himself to stop the main villain of the theme from returning, but somehow he was able to come back as a ghost and possess his own skeleton. So even though he's all bones, he is technically alive. But he isn't the only stuntman with some dark lore, because there's also Chuck D. Goldberg. All that's officially known about him is that he's a stuntman, but in the Shark Attack Stunt Challenge set, he has a treasure chest with a dead minifigure on the side of his stunt. It doesn't really make sense for it to be here, and since Chuck is holding a treasure map in one of the pictures, it led me down a pretty dark rabbit hole. For one, he had to kill sharks and attach them to a crane to make this stunt, which is questionable on its own. But finding treasure and bringing the person who died with it is just downright evil. It's almost like he's bragging that he got the treasure while this person died trying. Unfortunately, 46 different minifigures have worn this hat, so there's no way to know who it is. A lot of you probably think it's a pirate, but that isn't necessarily true. The main people chasing pirates are called Imperial guards, and a lot of them wore this hat, but just because they stop pirates doesn't mean they're good people, and I can prove it with the shipwreck hideout set. This is one of Captain Brickbeard's hideouts, and in my last video, I talked about how the skeleton heads on his desk are probably Imperial guards, but there's way more to this set than just this. From the pictures, it looks like the guards are raiding Brickbeard to try and kill him, but that's not what's going on here. On page 13 of the instructions, there's a comic showing that the guards went for the treasure first. Only after that did everyone start fighting. And yes, I only said this to prove that the skeleton in the Shark Attack stunt set could be anyone. But there's a skeleton in the Shipwreck hideout set too, and I'm almost positive I know exactly who it is. In the instructions, we're told to put the hat on the skeleton with the tube facing forward, and out of the 16 minifigs who wear this hat, the Imperial Governor is the only one that wears it the exact same way, so this skeleton is most likely him. The only holes in my theory is that the skeleton doesn't have the blue feather, and that Brickbeard didn't use his head as a trophy like he did with the others. But this next skeleton is 100% confirmed, and it's in the Pirates of Barracuda Bay set. This one is wearing a black Shako hat, and only Imperialists wear a hat like this. There are 9 of them in total, but to narrow down who it is, we have to pay attention to how LEGO is naming things. According to Brick Economy, this skeleton is an Imperial guard, and if we look at Bricklink to see who wears this hat, only one of them is an Imperial guard. The rest of them are Imperial soldiers. This guy was in 8 sets back in the day, but we haven't seen him since 1995, so I guess it's because he died in this shipwreck. You can't see him from the outside of the set, but if we go to page 226 of the instructions, we see that he died somewhere underneath the ship, and even lost his leg too. He was probably too stubborn to give up hunting Captain Redbeard, but someone else was also too stubborn to give up, and they turned up dead in the shipwreck set in Aqua Raiders. Before that though, you need to know that the main plotline of this theme was that these divers were hunting treasure in the Bermuda Triangle, which is absolutely psychotic, but whatever. And when they found treasure, it usually came with deadly sea creatures or dead bodies, and this is exactly what happened here. Down at the bottom of the ocean is a skeleton wearing a gold chrome crown, which leaves us with 2 likely scenarios. Number 1, this is a former king that went missing ages ago and valued treasure so much that he'd rather die than leave its side. Or number 2, this is a pirate who found treasure, was so happy that he put on the crown, because they always do that, and would rather die than leave the treasure's side. Either way, whoever this was clearly valued money more than their own life. The underwater themes actually have a lot more skeletons than I thought, especially when it comes to Aqua Raiders, because 2 of these guys have shown up dead in different themes, and one of them got killed by a giant squid in the Aqua Base Invasion set. The skeleton in this set has the Aqua Raiders logo on their helmet, so we know for sure it's one of these divers. But at some point, he ran into this giant squid and got eaten alive. You can see them in the top part of the squid, and this is actually where its digestive tract is in real life. LEGO made this death eerily accurate to the real world, and if you didn't notice the skeleton in there on the box, it was a crazy jump scare in the instructions. You put him in there on page 35, and a few pages later, you build an eyeball, which probably made you realize what was going on. This is definitely one of the more brutal deaths in LEGO, but I said earlier that there were 2 of these divers, so where's the second one? Well, he's actually dead at the portal that leads to the lost city of Atlantis. This set is obviously in the Atlantis theme, but this diver has been sitting here a lot longer than you might realize. Aqua Raiders was introduced and retired in 2007, and the Portal of Atlantis set came out in 2010, so this diver has been here for 3 whole years. Unlike the other guy, we have absolutely no idea how this diver died, but if nothing else, it pretty much confirms that the portal to Atlantis is in the Bermuda Triangle, which is a pretty cool piece of lore. Since these skeletons only have their helmets, there's no way to know which divers they are in particular, but at least we know they're from Aqua Raiders, because the skeleton in the Sunken Treasure Mission set only leads to dead ends. This set is actually a 3-in-1, and this diver ends up dead in 2 different positions. For one of them, they found a vault with treasure in it, and for the other one, they got stuck trying to do some photography. But the issue here is that there isn't a single minifigure that matches what this skeleton is wearing. The most defining feature are the flippers in dark turquoise, and this is the only diver that wears these exact flippers. But the helmet and air tank aren't the right color, so it can't be them. Every other skeleton in this video could at least be traced to a handful of possibilities, but this one is a complete mystery. However, there's still one more underwater skeleton I want to show you, and it's in the Deep Sea Explorer Submarine set. This one is in the exploration sub-theme of Lego City, and just like the skeleton in Barracuda Bay, you can't see them from the outside, but once you find them, it tells you the same story of greed like the one with the golden crown. You can find them on page 24 with a sword and a yellow gem in their hands, and their missing leg is on the opposite side of the cave. Seeing as how there are sharks down here, it probably means that this leg got bitten off by one of them, and somehow that still wasn't enough to make this guy let go of his precious gemstone. As for their identity, the way they're wearing their hat leads to a pretty crazy theory, because the only other minifig who wears it like this is the captain of the skeleton ship from the castle theme. There's barely any lore on this guy online, but maybe he was plundering a ship, went down with it, lost a leg, and died. It's pretty far-fetched, but you'd be surprised how many skeletons there are in Lego Castle. There's one in the dungeon set with a very distinct helmet, but to understand what's going on here, you need a bit of castle lore. There were a lot of different evil factions in Castle, like the Fright Knights, the Shadow Knights, and the Dragon Knights, and even though they wear the same helmet as this skeleton, it actually can't be any of them. Each evil faction had a rivalry with a different good faction, and since this dungeon set is in the first Knights Kingdom sub-theme, their rivalry was with the Bull Knights. Now, most of the knights from this faction didn't wear helmets like this, but we can still find out who this skeleton is by piecing together a few different things. The other minifigure in the dungeon set is a man named John of Maine, but he was partners with a man named Richard the Strong, and he was guarding treasure in set 6094 from a robber wearing the exact same helmet as the skeleton. This robber, as the websites call him, is a bull knight, and you can tell by the breastplate. He's also the only evil minifigure in this sub-theme that wears this helmet, so this is without a doubt the skeleton in the dungeon set. The websites not calling him a bull knight made this the most difficult skeleton to backtrack in this whole video, but the one in the Halloween add-on pack is a lot easier to figure out. Since this is just a fun pack, I didn't read into it like I did with the others, but I'm still pretty sure I know who this is. Lego made this pack for Halloween, so they could have easily made the witch hat black, but they specifically made it blue, the same color Magisto wears. Magisto was the first minifigure with a real name, so I think Lego was quietly referencing him with this hat, but fun time is over, because the skeleton in the Temple of Resurrection set from Ninjago died a pretty horrible death. This is the same place where Lord Garmadon was reborn, and considering all the lore around it in the TV show, it makes sense why there's a dead ninja here. The sons of Garmadon were able to reduce the royal palace to ruins, and after that, it became very clear that this temple was a shrine to darkness. The ninja who was unlucky enough to die here is stuck forever inside this cave, and just like the one from the Deep Sea Explorer set, they're also missing a leg. You can find it on the other side of the cave with an emerald attached to it, and since this ninja is impossible to identify, maybe this gemstone is a piece of lore that I don't know about that can help to identify them. So if that's true, let me know in the comments. But remember earlier when I said the diver that got eaten alive by a giant squid was super brutal? Well, the one in the Volcano Island set is 1,000 times worse. This skeleton is wearing a conquistador helmet, which I'll come back to later. But if you look at the promo pic for this set, you realize this skeleton could have only died in one place: the inside of the volcano. This is an absolutely terrible way to go out. But on page 15 of the instructions, we find out it was all for a play feature. The only minifigures this could be are soldiers from either the red or green Imperial armadas, and we can't even be sure of which one because the feather on the green soldier could have easily just burned to ashes. This exact skeleton shows up in 2 more sets. One of them is the Skeleton Crew set, and there's pretty much nothing going on here. But the other one is in the Pirates Perilous Pitfall set, and this skeleton is here to show just how perilous this pitfall really is. In the promo pic, the skeleton is hanging off of one of the masts, but in the instructions, it's actually hidden under some leaves off the side of the base plate. The main play features of this set all have to do with traps. One of them is a trap door that drops you into a prison, and the other one is a boulder that comes rolling down like in Indiana Jones. We can't be too sure how this conquistador skeleton died, but what we do know is that he was part of the Red Armada. But I can't end the video without showing you guys skeletons with confirmed identities, so I have 2 for you, and they're both in the Adventurers theme. This theme is absolutely loaded with lore and skeletons, but LEGO actually confirmed the identity of 2 skeletons themselves, and one of them is Pharaoh Hotep. Hotep played a pretty big part in Adventurers lore, and his real body first showed up in the Temple of Anubis set. He was only in 4 other sets, but after he died, his skeleton showed up in 2. In both sets, someone was trying to steal something from him, or he himself, like what Dr. Kilroy did in set 2995. But someone else tried to steal something from Hotep, and they're actually the second skeleton in the Adventurers theme. This is Sam Sinister, otherwise known as Baron von Baron, and he was always trying to steal Hotep's red ruby. This was Hotep's prized possession, and Sam was actually able to steal it. But in return, Hotep haunted his house, and that's where the haunted house set comes into play. This is Baron von Baron's actual house, and the name of the set ties straight into the lore of Adventurers. Now, I will say, LEGO did say there's no way to know for sure if this is Sam Sinister, but if they're gonna point it out in the instructions, then they're just trying to steer us off course. This is definitely Baron von Baron. But out of every skeleton in this video, which story disturbed you the most? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.